So now that we finally finished the game, I'm going to go ahead and discuss dead format. So to go into what this game generally is, it is a survival horror game that has a bit of a twist on survival horror games, but it does follow the kind of Resident Evil style where, you know, you're in the same location multiple times, but you can't access every area without the right item. So it is sequential, but you have to kind of figure out where you're going. But the way this game twists it is instead of it being in like the one big house, it utilizes jumping from films to films, almost like this surrealistic kind of element about it, where you go from place to place, and they're all connected, but they're all different at the same time, and you can't go through one area or one movie or whatever without without going to another one. So you're going back and forth between these movies, learning about the lore a little bit, and it's just an interesting concept along that line. And obviously it is an indie game as well. So a single man dev team obviously hired out some people, but it's a relatively pretty advanced game, all things considered, for what you're getting. So without any further ado, let's jump into what I thought about the game officially. First thing I'm going to start with was what I enjoyed about the game. So right off the bat, I want to tell you, I love the idea. I love the feeling of it. You know, the whole concept of the whole game being played like you're in the movie itself. Like, I'm just touching base on that. The whole point of, like, the levels are the movies, and when you put a movie in the VHS player, you're basically transformed to that world. And as I mentioned too, the ability to basically progress through levels, you eventually run into a stoppage. You know, you're basically stuck here, and you have to leave. You pick up a new tape. You're like, oh, I got the new tape. Now it's time to switch movies and jump to the next one. Now there's a whole new different style of enemy. There's a whole new world in there, but more or less they're all scary movies that kind of, set the tone in different ways. So it's all horror movies. And I gotta say, there's something about those older 90s like horror films, VHS, like the older TVs with the tracking, and they're not in the best resolution, the camcorder kind of films. It does really throw you into that world, and it's almost like jumping through the camera this time and actually being in the movie that you're watching. And I think that is such a cool concept, and just on atmosphere and vibes alone, I think the game does an absolutely fantastic job at setting that mood and making you want to learn more about what you're about to do. Again, my favorite things are going to be about this game, literally, are just the whole concept as a whole and how the game actually takes it. I'd say it does a great job at taking the Resident Evil format and turning it into its own thing and putting its own twist. Obviously, if you're a Resident Evil fan, you'll be able to understand what you need to do, the whole concept, and generally, everything is relatively the same. It does kind of follow more modern Resident Evil games, kind of along the style of, Resident Evil 7 and onward. It's got that first-person view, which, in my opinion, some people don't like the first-person Resident Evils. I actually really like them. I think it kind of sets the tone quite a bit, and it really, really just throws you into the world of Resident Evil. But like I said, with this one, it takes its own twist on it with something you're familiar with. But again, we've played a few games that are inspired clearly from Resident Evil games in the past, or literally recently we've actually played a ton of them. But it doesn't bother me that they're like, I got influenced by Resident Evil and I want to do my own spin on it, because I love that style of game. It's almost like a genre of itself at this point. It's not even just survival horror, like RE style survival horror. It's pretty much at this point going to be called RE style horror or something like that. You know what I mean? Or survival horror. You know exactly what kind of game you're getting with. It is survival horror. You have to locate things, but really finding key items to progress in areas that you might have already explored. I don't know, there's something satisfying about that. You're like, oh, this door I can't access yet. It kind of guides you in the way you need to go, but at the same time, it doesn't, it's not that confusing in certain points. So again, just in terms of taking the genre and turning it into something unique that you've never done before, it does feel like you're jumping through different worlds, but it's also a pretty straightforward, you're going straight in. It's not too hard to kind of know where you're going for the most part. And obviously the vibes of each area, they're unique and they're really cool to look at. Despite, some of the, shortcomings of having an Unreal assets to here and there. So, like I said, the environment and the feel, the sound, it all brings you in. Again, these type of games, mood is very important. To me, atmosphere is one of the most important things when you're playing a horror game, and I think this one did an absolutely fantastic job of it. Now, all things considered, the game will take you... It's a decent length for what you're getting. I think it cost me on sale, I think it was about for $14 to $16 Canadian. Again, it was a bundle price, it's launch price, you know what I mean? So I think Americans are probably going to be around anywhere, I don't know, depending on what sale or bundle you get, because it's one of those ones where if you bundle it with another game or whatever, if you already own the game, it'll still give you the discounted rate. That's what I took advantage of today as well. So it'll be anywhere for you guys, I would assume like $12 to $14 to $15 as well. So it's not that expensive of a game. And like I said, it did take me, I mean, the stream is currently running in at 7 hours, over 7 hours, but that was because we got stumped on a few areas and we wasted a lot of time in certain areas. If you're watching this not live, obviously the video will be a lot shorter because I will have edited out those long-winded, wasteful moments. So if I could say cutting those down and really like, I probably could have shed 2 hours off. So with that being said, I feel like this game is going to run you at around, if you have a general good progression of where you're going, you can beat it in say 4.5 to 5 hours on your first run. That's my guess, roughly around that time. So for $15 or $12 US, whatever it ends up being for you, I'd say that's pretty good bang for buck. Considering as well at the, you know, there's again, without spoiling anything, there seems to be like a hidden code that I still haven't been able to crack. I know what they want me to look for, but you don't unlock that until the very end of the game, and you can tell they want you to replay the game, because by the time I got to those points in game, I remember as soon as I got spawned back, the game prevented you from going back to the movie. So it basically erased the tape and you had to start from, so essentially there was no way for me to go back to the tape. So I would basically have to load an old save and find what they were talking about, and I guarantee that's what he wants you to do. So there is a replay value there in a sense that if you know where you're going the second time you play, which you will, you're probably going to be bum rushing through this game pretty quickly. I did see someone completed it in like an hour and 15. Obviously they edited out a lot of like travel time, but I do believe this game, if you know where you're going, can be beat in like 2 to 2.5 hours on your second attempt. So there is a replay value in the sense that you know, there is something hidden that you can find, and I feel like it's the true ending. So I feel like in order to actually beat this game or see the full ending of the game, you do have to go find that. And it's almost because we never, you know, like things with like the whole story, it just kind of stopped, you know, the whole objective that we had to do, it just kind of ended, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like there's unfinished business in this game, which is what it hints at. So I feel like that's where your true ending is. So I feel like it's going to involve some fourth wall breaking, and there's a part of me that would love to replay it just to see that, but I feel like I'd need more information before I went ahead with that. And maybe we'll do that if there's time tomorrow or something. I'll do some digging. Maybe we'll just try and get that secret ending by, like I said, bum rushing through it, if that is indeed what it is. So I'll let you guys know, you know, if we end up doing that, of course. But anyway, that's pretty much what I liked about the game. Let's move on to the unfortunate side and talk about what I didn't like about the game. Now, while atmosphere is very important, gameplay is also very important as well. I feel like atmosphere and everything can really set a good game, and it can make you know, a game that's lacking proper game mechanics or gameplay, it's more forgivable, especially in a game like a walking sim. I'm less to critique it, especially when you're in the psychological horror. A walking sim is very much what you pretty much need to do for a psychological horror game. It's very, very common to do that format, and it does, like I said, I can forgive the lack of real gameplay when you set a good atmosphere and you tell a good story. However, this game is not a walking sim. It is a survival horror game with psychological horror elements. Now here's the thing with doing that. It's fine, but it does give you the illusion that there is a little bit more advanced systems than there actually is. I feel like the game was trying to do a little bit too much with at any given moment, because the enemies pretty mediocre when you really think about it. I mean, I would have loved to have seen more of the actual, you know, the actual symphony guy. You know, that we saw him one time at the beginning of the game, and he was literally just like the first area boss that you had to avoid, and then we never saw him again except for in media and references. So I thought that was very, very strange that it seemed like he was going to be a major enemy, and then we never saw him again once we got through. It's almost like he was the tutorial guy. And as we kept going, there were enemies that seemed kind of basic, and they went down pretty easily, depending which film you were playing in at the time. They would be just kind of pop up randomly, but they would respawn in the exact same spot. So if you left the movie, reloaded it again, it would respawn. And that goes for all the items as well. All the items will disappear and then reappear again, depending on which ones you pick up, of course. Some of them don't, but most of them reappear, and it just seems kind of glitchy, especially considering if they're a story item. For example, with that lantern that I picked up, or the candelabra. The candelabra, I used it, and then it's still the the whole like mechanism that I had to knock down to get the candelabra respawn, and I was able to knock it down again and pick it up again and add it to my inventory, even though it's already been used. So it just seemed like a lot of the items should have disappeared after you were done with them. It just makes it feel confusing to the player, especially when you're coming through. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's that organized, and it feels like almost like it's like a, you know, it's like, you know, it's been phased over, like it's been kind of skimmed or forgotten about, or almost like it's a bug that's currently in works. So it's almost like the game isn't completely finished. Like it works and you can beat it and all that, but it feels like there's a lot of elements in here, a lot of moments where you could tell that wasn't as intended. I mean, as mentioned too, with the inventory management, if you have ammo in regular Resident Evil games, you're able to combine ammo so they don't take up multiple slots. So it'll basically take as much ammo as a capacity in one slot, and you can merge the two together, and basically that'll free up a spot of your inventory. But the dev came into the stream themselves, and they literally said, oh, unfortunately, you're kind of just drop it and pick it back up, it'll stack that way. But obviously that is a bug that will probably get fixed with patches, but at the same time, don't release it yet if it's an issue, especially if it's a major feature. So same thing goes with all those like items that will respawn. Like, obviously if you're coming back, you're gonna need respawning items like ammo and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about, but like stuff that is involved like with major like story things, like things that trigger different story events, those shouldn't respawn once you've used them. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. So I feel like with that, and obviously the enemies that completely pop up not randomly, but they pop up in literally the exact same thing. The regular enemies aren't really that dangerous, and they aren't that common either. So I really don't think they're going to be that much of a problem. And I will say too, any of the weapons you do pick up, you're not going to use them that much on regular enemies. You will use them, but like once you do use them, you'll open up a shortcut that'll allow you to bypass that area altogether. So there's no real reason to go through that area ever again, especially considering, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, there's no sense in triggering those enemies to spawn when I don't need to get there. I've literally, like, look at this. Here's all this maze. I have to do this maze to open this door. But really, now that you've opened this door here, whenever you're back here, you can just take this route instead of being locked out here and going all the way through that again. So that was the whole point of it. So there's tons of moments where you just don't need to fight enemies. And I think at one point they just kind of spawned at major trigger points, and yeah, those little cannon fodder enemies, they just were very few and far between, and they weren't that much of a problem, which does lead me to the main enemy in the game, which is of course the vulture stalking, you know, creature. You know, obviously a character that was designed to not actually be killed, a character that is one of those ones like you have to stealth and avoid them as you're moving through and advancing the game. Unfortunately for that AI is not the most fun to deal with. It is exceptionally, it's one of two things. It's either super sensitive or it's pretty dim-witted. Most of the time it was too sensitive, and it did not matter what you were doing. You could have been tiptoeing, you could have stepped on glass, you could have stepped on nothing. As soon as that monster spawns in, it goes to your last known sound location. Doesn't matter. The last footstep you took, it's going to sprint to your location. That's what it does. Whenever it spawns and you hear the sound effects of it coming in through its portal, it knows where you are right now, and that's where it's headed. And I think that's the biggest thing with this game. It's like, it almost takes away the need to stealth. Because if you did just run around, you're better off you could sprint to your next spot, but you have to immediately find a hiding place. Otherwise, they can get you. Which leads me to another problem. That monster is again, they're sensitive, but their crouching doesn't really do much. They will hear you or see you depending on where they're looking at that given moment. So sometimes you could literally be right behind the monster crouching and not hear you. And it could be like, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 feet away from you. And as soon, you could be out in the open, but it could turn and see you. As long as its cone of vision is there, it doesn't matter how far away you are. You could be crouching, you could be completely out of the way on the other side of the map. It'll just know where you are and sprint towards you. So the fact that it's so inconsistent and it's such a major like mechanic of the game, it really, really does take away from it, I'm afraid. So it's more of a distraction and a nuisance because you're trying to progress the story, and the AI spawns it in so much, you find yourself waiting around a lot for it to get the hell out of your way, and sometimes it just doesn't because it doesn't know where it wants to turn. Whereas other times you'll be standing there hiding in plain sight, and all that's there is like this little wall blocking you, and it's literally looking you dead in the eyes. It's like, I don't know where he is, and then it goes and leaves you alone. So the AI was annoying. Like I said, it's too fast, so you could down it and it would be up in maybe 10 seconds or more, or less rather, and by then it's so fast, you trying to bum rush yourself in the other direction, just hightailing in the opposite direction, will still not be fast enough because your character is not as fast as the monster. So you're better off not even bothering shooting it, which is where ammo doesn't really come into play that much, except for a couple of areas. I just felt like it just wasn't utilized well, and I think the enemies were, I think, the biggest detriment to this game. With that being said, it is the major feature, and I was actually, once I found out that this creature, the vulture creature stalking you through the whole game, was the main focal enemy and the major mechanic of the game, and it was able to come with you across different films, even though it didn't at first, that was the biggest detriment for me. I'm like, oh, no way is she coming with me every time. It made it seem like playing through the game became a chore at that stage, because this enemy was just so inconsistent and so sensitive and just way overpowered in a lot of ways. I think what needs to happen is that enemy needs a bigger timer on respawns. I think stealth mechanics need to be actually utilized. So if I'm tiptoeing literally everywhere and I'm crouching, there's no reason why it should spawn. There's no reason why I should spawn. If I want to run, or if I want to start walking more, maybe that makes more sense. But you could be standing still, it'll just spawn in near you because it knows that's where you are. So it takes away the whole need for stealth, and it just adds, like I said, a roadblock constantly. It's like you're trying to walk forward and this guy keeps trying to trip you. You know, he keeps running ahead of you, throwing objects in your way. Oh, running ahead, you avoid it, running ahead, throwing something under your feet until eventually you do get tripped up. That's what it feels like through the whole game. You're trying to do this stuff by like bringing this item to this item. Now I gotta go up these stairs, back down again, and in a game where you're going back to the same location many times to progress it, super annoying, super annoying. So I feel like that needs to get dialed in, and because like I said, it is one of the biggest, if not the core mechanic of the game. It's the whole point of it. It's the whole thing you're supposed to do, is avoid this creature. So again, definitely railroaded me a bit, and I feel like it's what made the game take as long as it did. It definitely wouldn't have been that long otherwise. Speaking of that, making the game take longer than it did, I will say there was a lot of times where I don't think the game did a great job at really explaining what you needed to do. I'd say for the most part with Resident Evil games, when you got a new item and you knew what you're like, oh, I know what this is for. This is for that thing I saw. That really was pretty easy to do. Like for me in this game, I would remember quite a few times, but then there would be a very, very niche moment where it's like, what am I forgetting? There's something in there that I'm forgetting. And the thing is, because each area is so big, if you compare it to Resident Evil, you're in a house, so you can kind of remember your way around a little bit better. But when you have to absolutely go all the way back to that apartment room, back in, and you know, and to remember, oh wait, maybe it's over here. And if you don't remember, it takes so long to get all the way over here and all the way back, because there's literally only one way in and out of each of these realms. Is like, yes, you might unlock shortcuts to bring yourself back to the apartment, like the spawn area or whatever, the safe zone, so to speak, but it doesn't really matter because you'll have to go all the way back out. So if that's a dead end, guess what? You just wasted all that time. Not to mention, I wasted a ton of time on one thing. It took me an hour and a half trying to find the solution to this, because I thought I needed to find a specific item to open the gem from the ring. Turns out, even though my first instinct when I got the ring and it said, oh, the gem is loose and I'm supposed to remove it, my first instinct was to inspect it, because in this game, and Resident Evil games for that matter, you can inspect something and you can hit a button if you look at it from the right angle. I inspected the living hell out of that ring, and the problem with the inspections on this, where the prompt to engage with that inspection is so precise that if you're looking at it from this side, but if you're slightly askew like that, the button to prompt the next movement won't spawn in or won't appear. That's what happened to me. So I'm looking at this ring, I'm like, well, I'm literally inspecting it here, I'm inspecting it here, inspecting it here, and it'll eventually, the side that I was supposed to inspect on, I wasn't lining it up perfectly to the point where I had to hit, you know, the prompt to remove the actual gem from the ring. So I spent an hour and a half looking around different areas, trying to remember all the areas, all the dead ends I ran into, and being like, oh no, I need the correct item for that, and I just couldn't think of it. It was so frustrating. I was lost, banging my head, until eventually I just tried looking at it again, and I had to just be even when I looked at it that second time, and I'm like, it's gotta be here. I looked at it at least 3 or 4 times, because I'm like, it's gotta be an inspection. I would rotate it so many times, and then eventually I got it perfectly lined up and the button appeared. So I think that really pissed me off. So I think it's got to be a little bit bigger of a cone. Instead of being this narrow little cone, it's like it's got to be on this angle exactly. I think it needs to be more like that. You know what I mean? So that way, if the player is somewhat looking at the right side, it should open there. And that really sucked. I felt like I wasted so much time on that bit just because it made me second guess myself. I'm like, my first instinct to look at it, and it didn't work, so I'm gonna try and move on to other things, and then I go back to it, still doesn't work. I think I just had bad luck with it, to be honest, but I still think it shouldn't have been that hard to line it up to begin with. It shouldn't have taken me 4 different attempts to inspect the thing to actually get it, you know what I mean? So again, that was a big detriment to me, and it definitely like made me annoyed to play the game, because all the other problems with the game, well, it was basically dragging me through the mud during each of those sections when I just realized I wasted an hour and a half of my time doing this, putting up with this frustrating AI and these annoying like hide and seek moments just to find out that I had it right the first time. Super annoying. Again, you might say that's on me, and to a degree it is on me, but again, I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to find. I've never had a problem with any other game in this genre where you have to inspect an item. Never. It's relatively straight. Well, how can you not? Try and find the opening. You know what I mean? Try and find the top. You look at it from each angle, and it still didn't work. So I'm not saying like it's not all on the dev for that one, but I do think the cone, like I said, has to be a little bit bigger. Either way, it did kind of kill my momentum a little bit with the game, and we just kind of ran into a wall for the last hour and a half on that one. So, yeah, there you have it. Anyway, one last thing I want to discuss before we officially summarize this game is I think the story itself, while very intriguing, it does just kind of leave a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of plot holes here and there, because the questions never really get answered. And while if that last little note there that hinted at like finding those switches that I found one of those switches by mistake, if that is like you have to find those on another play and you have to like, figure out like a hidden ending, I feel like that's a bit much to get the true ending. Instead of giving us absolutely nothing to work with, it almost is like, let's just make you play the game again and hope they can even find it, because like that like I have to go on another scavenger hunt to find it. Not only that, I have to find the switches, but I also have to know what numbers they need to be set to. That's what's crazy, is I don't actually know that. So how many times do I have to run through the game and try and solve this really I don't know, convoluted puzzle? I don't know. I just feel like it just kind of kills the moment, and I would like to have a definitive ending without having to replay the game, because we didn't really get much of an ending. It didn't really make that much sense, if I'm honest. It's obviously like you have to find that secret ending if that's what it is. I'm just guessing if it is. It feels like that's the only thing it could be. So I feel like most people aren't even going to bother doing another run to find out the true ending anyway, because I think they're going to be a little bit frustrated with some of the things I might have mentioned. So whether or not it constitutes another run is up to you. I would like to know how it ends, but at the same time, it's like, man, that sucks. I shouldn't have to do that. So I wish the ending was more definitive. Obviously, the story had me. It basically left us on a cliffhanger, and we weren't able to figure out what happened, or what actually the meaning of it all is, without that little, I'm assuming, find those hidden switches. I think that's kind of stupid in my opinion. So one thing I almost forgot as well, this game does not have any achievements. So there's no, I'm not saying achievements are end all be all. Obviously we played video games for many decades without having any achievements at all. So I understand that's not a huge thing, but it would be nice in this day and age to have a game with achievements. It gives, something to strive for. It's a badge of pride in a lot of gamers communities. Like a lot of people love to achieve, like go for something, whether that be, just story-based achievements or speedrun achievements or collectible stuff. It's satisfying to get those, so I think it would have been nice if this game actually had achievements. Again, it's not considered a like a deal breaker for me if a game doesn't have achievements. It's one less thing to worry about, I guess, but it would be nice to have something that you can work towards on top of it. Again, extending that replay value. That's really what I look for in that kind of stuff. So I know that was a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's go ahead and summarize one last time before we give you the score. So the game does an absolutely fantastic job at setting the mood. I think the idea and the concept is super cool and super original, even though the genre is not new. Obviously, the Resident Evil style survival horror, it's a fan favorite. I love Resident Evil style horror or survival horror games. I think they're really cool. And obviously, with the originator doing it so well, I just think it's a great genre. Like I said, it's become a subgenre of the survival horror genre itself. And I think it's just done so well that I love seeing games put their own twist on it and utilize that system without just being a copy paste. And I'd say this game did a great job at doing that. Obviously taking us back to the 90s, VHS, and using that kind of horror, but obviously incorporating movies, not just in as levels themselves, but having them be integrated in as a bigger world and requiring it to go from movie to movie to movie to progress the game in each world. So you might have to go to this movie and come back, you know what I mean, to get the right item you need for this movie. I think that's awesome and it's super cool. So obviously while it does set that tone and give you that really good visual and audio experience, unfortunately the gameplay itself, you know, its main mechanic, you know, avoiding the AI is really annoying. I feel like the stealth doesn't work whatsoever. It's kind of pointless. You know, some of the areas, it's kind of easy to get lost even though the game isn't massive, and I feel like it's quite the long-winded run when you go from point A to point B. It takes forever to get there, so you might be running through, you might forget something and you have to go all the way back, or you have to load a game or whatever the case would be, because you can only save in the safe house. You can't, once you're in the level, it's almost roguelite in a way because of that. So I think that kind of kills the momentum a little bit. And obviously having the story not being, you know, being like dropped on its ass, like at the, you know, I want more definitive information. I don't just want to be left with this and find a secret ending and that's the only way out of it. I wish we had at least a little bit something, and then if there was a little bit more information with the secret one, I think that makes more sense, but give me something to work with. Obviously this was meant to be played again. Obviously not having achievements, you know, there's just a lot of things that, you know, a few bugs and things like that. The combat, the, you know, shooting mechanics, they're not that good, and it just feels kind of pointless after a while. Like I said, the enemies that spawn in, they spawn in the exact same spots every time, minus the wandering AI. And yeah, again, the wandering AI alone is mad annoying, super inconsistent with the spawns, and super overpowered in a lot of ways, fast as hell. Usain Bolt in here, it's crazy. So I just think those things kind of make the game less appealing, and even though the concept and the idea and everything was super strong, I think the execution was a little bit weak. So I mean, for the price point, it's not bad, but again, the replay value, it's not really there. Especially considering you can actually beat this game in like less than 2 hours or less if you on a second run. So it is pretty cheap though, so I can't really give it too much trouble there. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a score now based on all these things, obviously comparing everything. And I know these things can be improved. I know that like achievements can be added. I know that updates can happen, but it's also like, this is the full game. This isn't an early access title. So it does feel a little bit like it's not finished yet, and I feel like we need a bit more from it. So hopefully in the future there is achievements and there's more things to make this worth it. Currently, I think you're better off waiting, because I mean, I feel like you do need some more stuff in this game just to make it worth it. But for a score, for a while I felt like it was hovering around the average. It is kind of an average game, especially comparing the price point, but I just think the AI is so goddamn annoying, and since that's the whole point of the game, it's the core mechanic, it really does drop the score quite a bit. So I feel like this game is going to end up at the current state with its current build and how it is. I think it's still going to get a 4.5 from me. So it's not a terrible game. It's still really cool, and it's worth kind of going through, at least I felt like. But I just think like with that enemy, the AI, and obviously the enemies there, and a lot of stuff seems kind of pointless. I don't know, it does drop the score a little bit. I didn't want to give it anything lower than that though, because I still think it's not like, for the price point, it's super cheap anyway. It is a really cheap game, and you're going to get a few hours out of it. It's just the journey is still intriguing and interesting. There's some genericism in there as well. So 4.5, I think that score could come up with, you know, fixing some of these issues, achievements. But for now, I think we should wait for some patches. Wait till Buddy gets some stuff done. I know it's a solo dev, so I know that takes more time. But I think that I would recommend this game, at least to run through it once those things get solved. But at the moment, just wait a bit and just kind of keep an eye on it. Look for a sale maybe down the line. Then it could be a really cool game to pick up down the line, okay? So there you go. That's my thoughts. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one today. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Turn on those post notifications with the bell icon so you don't miss anything I put out here on the channel. Be sure to like, follow my socials, Facebook, X, Instagram, Snapchat, and Discord. Those are linked in the description. If you want to get yourself a shirt or hoodie of mine, there is a link in the description. There is a section under my under the stream as well that shows a preview of some items you can get. Just go to the website though for the full range of products and customization options. A big shout out to the sponsors, of course: DX Racer, Bones Coffee, Ridge Wallet, Mad Rabbit Tattoo. I use their products daily. Check them out for yourselves with the links in the description. Be sure to use my promo code DANQ8000 to save at checkout with them. If you guys want to send something to my PO box, there is an address listed in the description. Anything that gets sent to that one will be open in a social post or a live stream. So whatever you end up sending, I will open that stuff and showcase it for you guys. So check that out if you're interested in sending something my way. Finally, be sure to check out and sign up for the Team 1000 membership program if you haven't done so yet. It does support the page immensely. There's 4 tiers, 4 price points. Entry level is 99 cents, so it's a cheap and easy way to get into the program. However, across various tiers, you get things like custom badges by your name, custom emojis used in chat, exclusive video stream access, party and open lobbies, giveaways, discounts, and plenty more. Working our way back through the 2000s. We're in various amounts, over 2,000. 2,000 members is nuts. We keep kind of at the hover point. You know, some people have been gifting, some expired, so we're kind of around there, but we're hovering around the 2,100 mark, so that's amazing. Most we've ever had is 2,450, so anything above 2,450 is just awesome. We're just going to keep trying to beat these records and see how high we can get. If you guys want to help us do that, get some cool perks, support the channel, you can join that with the link in the description. Join button below the stream section on my main channel page as well. If you want to gift those members or send super chats or super thanks, you can do those with the $ icon that's next to chat. Give it a click, you'll get a drop down menu pop up. If you are gifting members, just remember you can do 1 to 50 in a single transaction, but ultimately you can gift as many as you want through multiple transactions. Okay, thank you guys again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we catch you in the next one very soon. All right guys, we'll see you all then. Take care. Peace.
Who the man with the plan? If you feel trouble wildin' wild on these violent and hit you 8,000. Wait a minute, hold that style is dialed in. Goddamn Billy Jack, we still riding tires flat. I hear them sirens, see shots flying, so we driving fire back. If they ain't vibing, lie with that. Got me dressed up in all black. What up? Hood up and I see them haters try to run with us. They gon' need inhalers. Gotta breathe them hard just like Darth Vader. Players, grab your respirators. Night invaders get lightsabered. Mask on for the shooters. Move like trash to bed intruder. Got that Glock and got them woofers. Just press play, I'll keep it moving. Who is not still, you damn fools. Keep it fresh like canned food. There ain't nothing we can't do, so tune into that damn cue. Yeah. It was never, ever a game.